Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Life in Motion. I'm your host, Grace Becker. I'm a licensed mental health therapist and an enthusiast of life. And today I am joined by my friend, Hunter Medenwaldt. Hi, Hunter. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How's your week been so far?
It's been short, but it's only Tuesday.
It is, yeah. As we're recording this, it's only Tuesday.
Yeah.
Do you have any fun plans for the rest of this week?
Just work, which wouldn't be considered fun, but I think we're also.
Depends who you ask.
I think we're also going to the lake cabin this weekend, possibly. So
That would be exciting. Okay, so you're going to the lake this weekend. Do you have to do that thing where you take the dock out?
no, that is already out because it's frozen. But yeah,
It's frozen in the
lake
water?
is frozen.
The lake is frozen.
Yes.
Or, I mean, you have to put it back in.
Yeah, we will when it warms up.
Okay, so it's not warm enough to do that yet?
No,
Okay.
not yet, because otherwise it'd just like chill on top of the ice until it melts.
I never grew up with a lake cabin, so I never had to deal with that. But I knew some people who were who had lake cabins, and they always talked about having to do that. And I guess it sounds like it sucks.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty horrible. I would never want to do that. I would probably just hire people or force the men in my life to go do it.
I think Taylor's dad had hard work, from what I've been told.
Yeah.
I've never had to experience it, luckily, but
We haven't. Okay.
Taylor's had to experience it.
Yeah.
But
Okay. Well, I'm really excited to have you on today. Hunter is Taylor. He brought Taylor up. That's my friend. That's his fiance. Taylor was actually on the podcast. My second episode, I believe, we talked about making friends in adulthood. But I've known them both for years. We have this running joke with each other that also has some truth behind it, that we're each other's therapists.
it's very true.
Yeah, definitely. They got me this cute towel that says, "Thanks for being my unpaid therapist," and I love it. No one's allowed to use that towel because we just gotta keep that for decoration.
That's awesome.
But Hunter's amazing. He's one of those people that you can trust with anything, and he would never tell another soul. He's also the type of friend where he would drop anything for the people he loves. So I'm very grateful to have him on today, especially since we're going to be diving into the topic of men's mental health, as well as Hunter's own personal experience with coming into his mental health and how he's gone through that in his life. So yeah.
Should be exciting.
Before we do get into it, I just want to warn the listeners that we do talk about mental abuse, verbal abuse, possibly physical abuse in this. So just as a warning to you, if that would be triggering for you, to proceed with caution. So yeah. All right. Well, before we get started into your own personal experience, I thought it would be interesting just to talk about some men's mental health statistics and then just some other certain things. So first, Hunter, I just want to know what would you say the stigma around men's mental health is?
Not to seek help. You're supposed to have your walls up and beat your chest and never show any signs of weakness. Weakness includes being sad, crying, being in touch with your emotions, getting hurt physically. Even that is considered rub some dirt in it.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
It's such a toxic mentality because we put ourselves into that mentality. Nobody else does. I've never had another woman except for my mom say rub some dirt in it. It's
Yeah.
always been other men. And it's just like, who's doing this? Who's driving this ideology behind it that we got to be strong all the time?
It's just a perpetual thing that
it never ends.
all of you are just wanting to be able to talk to somebody about it.
Mm-hmm.
But also you've received that message of you're a man, be a man. Men, the only emotion men are allowed to show is anger or frustration, whatever that case may be. I agree that there's definitely that stigma around men that they're not able to, it's not okay for them to express or process their emotions or things that have happened to them.
And it almost just makes it worse because you wish you could talk to somebody, but it's seen as weakness by other men that surround you.
Yeah.
So then you sit in your own head all day, every day, wishing you could just reach out, but you don't. You restrain yourself from it because your entire life you've been told, grow a pair, whatever it may be to demasculate you for feeling anything less than angry.
Yeah.
It's just confusing. I've never understood the whole thought process behind it.
Yeah, and I've heard the idea of being a man is not showing emotion, but in reality it's the opposite. It is very manly, it's very human to show emotion and to express that to the people in your life to get help for it.
Right.
that is something that is like a quality to person. To be able to do that is impressive, and it takes a lot of vulnerability and power for someone to do that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that everybody cries, whether you willingly, openly admit it or you do it behind closed doors. It still happens, you know, and that also goes along the lines with reaching out for mental help. You know, everybody wishes that they could, whether it's behind closed doors or right in front of your face. You know, there's some portion of people that want help, but then restrain themselves because of what they've been told for the last 20, 40 years, whatever it may be, you know?
Yeah. That's actually a thing for men, is there's such a lack of awareness for them because they have that message of like only anger is okay. Like you can't cry, you can't be sad, you can't whatever. A lot of men don't even recognize the symptoms of mental illnesses. They'll be going through PTSD, anxiety or depression or whatever the case may be, and not even realize that that's what's going on because they don't know like what signs and symptoms to look for. Do you know anybody in your personal life that has reported that to you, like saying, yeah, I've been dealing with this, and you're like, oh, actually that might be something that like you want to get checked out?
Well, I've never been that upfront about it, you know, like go get help, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've always been like, listen to it and then figure out where to go from there together and try to give the best advice possible. And then if it gets to that point of, you know, if what I'm saying is not working and I could still tell that we aren't working through the things we need to, then I would, you know, be like, it's nothing to reach out to a therapist. You know, it doesn't make you weak. It doesn't, it's not a sign of weakness. Trying to find a person that went to school for this and studied people's minds and knows how they work. It's not a bad thing to reach out to a professional.
Yeah.
Do you do your plumbing yourself too, or do you call a plumber?
Right.
You have a general idea of how to do plumbing, but are you going to give it a try and be stubborn about it, or would you call the plumber, you know?
I always phrase it in the sense for people of, well, when you have like a medical issue, you go to a doctor for it, right? Or you go at least once a year for your physical, just like to check in, make sure everything's going all right. You should do that for your mental health too. Your mental health is also important. And your mental health can impact your physical health because there's not only physical symptoms of things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, you name it, but it also, like, your body keeps the score. If you're feeling anxious, your body tenses up. All of a sudden, next thing you know, you got joint pain, you got back pain. Like, your body holds that kind of stuff in. So it's really important to check in with yourself. Today, we're emphasizing men's mental health, women's mental health, non-binary people's mental health. All of it's very important, but men's mental health just tends not to be recognized as much. There's actually very campaigns for things like online telehealth therapy or medications or whatever the case may be. Fewer campaigns target men's mental well-being specifically. And a lot of research has shown that 1 in 5 men experience a mental illness each year, that men are less likely to seek help. One study found that around 40% of men with mental health issues seek professional help, compared to 60% of women. And another study was saying that 70% of all suicides worldwide are committed by men. And another one as well was saying that men are more likely to use substances like alcohol, drugs, whatever the case may be, to cope with mental illness issues rather than go seek professional help, talk it out with somebody. Yeah. What do you think of some of those stats?
I mean, it's not necessarily surprising because it is, again, such a stigmatized thing, you know? There's never been a great way to go about talking about it either, I feel like, because if you wanted to talk about your mental health issues with your dad and he doesn't see it from where you're coming from of letting your walls down, and he's been told to be a manly man his whole life, and that's the person that you leaned into to try to even open the idea of going to get help, and he shoots it out of the sky right away, are you going to continue to seek it? Are you going to pursue that if the person that you look up to completely destroys the foundation that you're trying to build?
Yeah. So one of my colleagues at where I work at, her and I always talk about how children, when growing up, if they have at least one trusted adult that they can come to with whatever's going on in their life, they are so much more likely to be able to process and express their thoughts, feelings, and needs to people in a productive, respectful manner later in their life, right? So they're less likely to explode at someone when they're really just feeling embarrassed because they had that adult, they had that person in their life who could help guide them and mentor them and show them that, yeah, you know what, it's actually okay to have feelings and it's okay to talk about them. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't have that, watch Bluey. I know it sounds like silly, but they actually like show how to communicate effectively through different things. And it's a children's show. It's super easy to watch, but I learned so much through like 6 episodes of watching that it was just crazy to see like the way that you can communicate differently from what I was shown, you know, how to talk through things instead of anger being the first thing you grab for.
Yeah. That's so interesting you bring up Bluey. I've been hearing that a lot lately. I haven't personally watched that, but I've been hearing a lot from not just kids, but adults,
Yeah.
parents, so many people saying that, yeah, I love Bluey. What is it about Bluey? They just teach like life lessons, kind of?
Yeah, it's like literally anything. You could see 2 kids fighting over a toy, you know, and then going back and forth, and then the dad gets kind of upset or whatever it may be, and then they work through it, and at the end they come to a resolution, and it's through talking, and it's very effective communication. There's no anger involved, obviously, because it's a kid's show, which is nice to see.
Yeah, if there's anger, they probably like teach them like how to express it in a productive way.
Yeah, and both the dad and mom kind of alternate, it seems like, trying to resolve issues. It's not just a one-sided thing, so it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. Now I'll have to add that to my toolbox of things to recommend to people.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, that was just some of my interesting facts that I thought could be a good way to lead us to segue into some of your own experience. You're 22 years old, right? So I'm imagining that there's a lot that's gone on in those 22 years. Could you share some of the things that you've experienced?
Yeah, I have a couple things that I have remembered. I tried to forget a large portion of that area of my life intentionally because it was almost always bad. There wasn't hardly anything good to remember.
Yeah.
So it almost just seemed easier to just intentionally forget about it.
Right.
So, like, at 10 years old, there was a mouse caught on a sticky trap in my room. It was fighting for its life, screaming, you know, that kind of thing. And my mom knew I was terrified of mice.
Yeah.
And she made me stay in my room until I killed that mouse. And then I was able to come out.
Oh my God, your mother made you do this?
Yes.
How old were you?
10.
You were
roughly,
10 years old?
Roughly 10.
Oh my God. So what did you do?
I ended up killing the mouse.
Afraid of mice and a live mouse, let alone.
Yeah, it was still alive and well. I mean, it wasn't well, obviously, but
It wasn't gonna be well.
not the best case to catch yourself in, but
yeah, like not only because you have a fear of them, but also your mom, who's supposed to be your protector, is supposed to be like, yeah, I understand. Like, let's find a way to work together to resolve this problem, versus just like, nope, I'm gonna lock you in your room, kill it.
Yeah, and that's how it went. You know, she stood right outside the door until I killed it, and then I was able to come out. So
yeah, how would you say that impacted your mental health?
I mean, I've never had support from my family throughout my entire life, and that just even furthered that thought, even at that such a young age. You know, like I needed you in this moment, and you basically slapped me across the face and told me to figure it out. You know, so it's like I never had the support that I needed, because it would have been very easy for her to come in there, figure it out as a 30-year-old adult and take care of it. But instead, the 10-year-old was the one taking care of it. And a part of me thinks that she was scared of mice too, and that's why she had me do it, because she wouldn't have been able to handle it. I've always thought that she was scared of mice too, so she didn't want to take care of it, so she made me.
Yeah, much better to send the 10-year-old to do it. Come on, lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that probably just furthered your fear of mice and also made you lose some, would you say, trust in your mom, or maybe just how you viewed her in general? Even
at that age, I never really had a trust in my mother, and it just made it worse, you know? She never really did anything or made any efforts to rebuild my trust either. It was like a constant tearing it down, even with, like, you know, you're here, and then you get to here with the trust, and it's right back to here, and then you get to here, and it, you know, it's just a constant vicious cycle that never ended.
Wow, where was like an adult? Where was your dad?
I think he was at work at that point.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Is it mostly been your mom who's been the primary aggressor, abuser in your life?
Yeah, I'd say so. As I got older, though, it was more my dad through texting and stuff like that. I always gave my dad the benefit of the doubt because, you know, you got 10 kids, you're living in a 3-bed, 1-bath house, and you're the only income. If you were to exit that situation that you're in, I don't know if they'd be able to survive without him, you know, and I know that weighs on his mind along with the child support, whatever. There's a whole list of things that he would always bring up on why he wouldn't. I eventually got to the point is like, you did this to yourself.
Yeah.
You quite literally fucked yourself. Like
Yeah.
you had 10 kids and now you're complaining constantly about having 10 kids and how it's
so many children.
Yeah, I don't know how they do it. I don't think they do, you know? Like,
Yeah. And you're the oldest?
yeah.
So there's 11 counting you.
No, I'm the oldest of 10 kids.
You're the oldest of
at
10.
22.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then who's the next youngest after you?
My brother, he'd be 4 years younger than me, and then there's a couple 2-year separations. There's another 4-year separation in there, I believe.
So 18 after you, down to what, like 5?
Younger than that.
Younger, like a baby?
Yeah, I'd say probably a year or 2 now, maybe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Are you still in contact with any of your siblings?
No, I haven't heard from them for a while. I mean, I talked to one of my siblings, but other than that, I messaged them like Merry Christmas, Happy Thanksgiving. I only have 2 other siblings' phone numbers as of right now. I will say that too. So out of the other 9 kids, I only have 3 of their numbers, and 2 out of 3 don't respond.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm sure you're like, given what you've said about your mom, she's probably not talking great things about you to them. And also some of them are really young, so they probably don't even have a phone.
Yeah,
But
that's definitely part of it too. I feel like both those things go hand in hand. And like just seeing what I grew up with, I didn't know either of my aunts until I was 20. And then we made an effort from there to rebuild that relationship. It was an effort from both parties, you know?
Yeah.
Through seeing each other, talking, whatever it may be, you know, you're basically starting from scratch. Because I knew them very briefly early on in my childhood, but I have very little memories with them, you know, because very early on, like 5 years old or younger, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And you know, if my siblings ever reached out to me, the door is always open. Let's sit down and restart. I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. Do you have any contact with any family, not even just your siblings, but like even growing up, like aunts, uncles, cousins?
Well, my dad's brother, we were allowed to be in contact with and he'd be around, but like my mom's sisters were both blocked on Facebook. We didn't have their phone numbers. Along with both my dad's parents were cut out of my life at a very young age. I've actually restarted my relationship with my grandfather too. So my dad's dad. And we've talked probably weekly, realistically, for 2 or 3 years now. So at around the age of 12, there was this 9-volt battery that we weren't sure if it had a charge or not. And the way that you check that is by putting it to your tongue. And if it zaps you, it has charge. If it doesn't, throw it away. My dad told me to hold it in my tongue, and I said no. And then my mom took over and proceeded to chase me into her bedroom. And I was laying on my back. She was straddled over top of me, and she was trying to put the battery to my tongue, no matter, like, I was, you know, moving my head back and forth, screaming, kicking. And the only reason she got off me was because I said, I hate you. That was the only reason she got off me. And then I got scolded about how you don't say I hate you to people.
Really?
Yeah.
Your mom chased you around and held you down against your will, tried to hold a 9-volt battery against your tongue, and then you said I hate you, and then she gave you a lecture on that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry to hear that you went through that. This is like a cycle of abuse. Have you ever heard of the cycle of abuse before?
I have not.
Well, there's primarily like 4 different stages of it. So it kind of starts with this honeymoon stage of like everything's going good. They're nice to you, whether it's family in this case for you or if it's in a relationship. This is kind of why you got into the relationship with this person. This is why you love your family, is because of this amazing part of them. But then all of a sudden tension starts to build. And that's when you get into like the second stage. And maybe they're becoming more nitpicky. They're starting to gaslight you. They're being manipulative. And then all of a sudden you enter the third stage. And this is where there's a big explosion of verbal abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, whatever the case may be. For this example that you just gave, chasing you around with a 9-volt battery, holding you down against your will. And then there's the fourth stage that you enter in. And then this is when the abuser is making excuses for their actions, trying to be like really apologetic sometimes. They'll do whatever they have to do to, like, maybe they'll give you a gift to get into your good graces, take you out to go to McDonald's drive-thru after school, just to kind of like, they don't want to admit what they did was wrong, but they also are feeling like, okay, I also need to keep this person in my life kind of thing. Like I need to keep them vulnerable. And they just do that cycle over and over.
No, that makes sense.
Would you say that you experienced that with your family?
I would say the cycle hasn't been completed yet because there's never been any accountability on their end.
Oh, there never is. They're never going to be like, yeah, I can't believe I did that to you.
Yeah, there hasn't been like any apologizing or any of that. They haven't tried to make up for any of the stuff they've did. In fact, they try to almost defend it more than anything. You know?
They make excuses.
Yeah.
Well, like I just did this because you were being a brat.
Yeah.
I'm the parent. You got to listen to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Wow.
Yeah. Fun stuff. At 14, my parents were going to separate because things had gotten so rough. So my dad was going to move to town and my mom was going to stay out on the farm. And on the way out the door, my dad said, "You're the man of the house now," at 14. And then he flashed forward like 6 months roughly. He ended up moving back in. And from then on, throughout my from like 14 to 18, he would ask me, like, what would you do if I was no longer in the picture? What if I was, dead and gone? How would you provide for the family? And it was such a weird manipulating thing almost, I feel like.
Oh, yeah.
To almost like keep me grounded, like an attempt to keep me grounded, if that makes sense.
But that's so much pressure to put on a 14-year-old.
Right.
Like, you're the parent, dude.
Mm-hmm.
You and mom can come up with the plan, how you're going to handle this if you leave or if you die, if whatever happens. Like, that is not your problem.
Right. But he made it my problem.
Yeah.
Multiple times.
How did you cope with that?
Well, I honestly would think about what I would do. If it was one of those things where it was on my mind a lot after multiple times of him bringing it up, I thought about it. Like, what would I do? And it didn't necessarily plague me throughout the work or throughout school day, but it was something that I thought about often, and I ended up just getting to the point of like, this is not my job. I'm not the adult here, like.
And you said that to him.
Yes.
Good. Good.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So eventually a line has to be drawn in the sand.
Right.
And it got to the point of like, you need to figure this out on your own. I can't give you all of life's answers at the age of even now 22, Like,
right.
You're twice my age. Figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too with parents is whether it's like in this case like the abuse manipulation or if it's just like general parenting where there's not necessarily abuse, but I often hear, well, I'm the parent, you're the kid, you gotta listen to me, or like I know better than you, or like I'm older, I know more, I'm better, like I know more than you, I'm better at this than you. And people don't have relationships with the relationship. And what I mean by that is you don't owe your dad anything because he's your dad. You don't owe your mom anything because she's your mom. If you think about the friends you have or your partner who you choose, you pick them based on qualities, usually qualities that make you feel good about yourself. And if they start to show red flags, most people would drop them then, right? But with family, there's like this built-in pressure of, well, they're family. Like I have to just persevere through this when no, you don't have to. Like you don't have to put up with that.
Yeah, my dad said that a lot too, like especially after I left the house and I was in college and stuff. He's like, "You don't do this to family." I was like, "You want to talk about family now? You ripped the family to shreds for years. Anybody that you could cut off, you did, and you've made no effort. So now you want to speak on family matters, but you never cared prior to this. Now family matters to you."
Yeah. Hypocritical.
Yes.
Yeah.
The entire livelihoods of these people is hypocritical.
Yeah. Oh my God.
So at 15, I had gotten some bad grades, and I was sitting down talking with my parents, and my parents, I believe it was my dad that said it. He said, "We're going to get free burgers from McDonald's for life because Hunter is going to be a burger flipper forever." So
how are you going to provide for the family?
yeah,
Like,
right.
what?
Yeah.
Wow. So they had no faith in you that
No.
you could make something of yourself, that they were like, you're just destined to be this
forever.
Because it sounds like they didn't mean it in like a endearing like way, but they were more so like, yeah, you're gonna be miserable. You're not gonna make anything out of yourself. Kind
Right.
of thing.
And it's driven me. It was one of those things that he said, and it was, it used to get to me, but now it's more of a driving factor more than it hurts me. Like if I ever think about slightly giving up, like no, You know, I'm not going to be this burger flipper that they think I'm going to be, you know, and I power through whatever I'm going through.
Yeah, that's actually a tactic I try and help my clients with, is taking it. You don't have to like change it, but you can challenge how you perceive it, right? So even though your dad meant it in that way of like, you're not going to amount to anything, you can take that though, and you can change it, and you can turn it into a driving force of, you know what you say doesn't have to define me. Just because you say it doesn't make it true.
Right.
Like, I get to decide what I make of my life. And like, look at you now. Like,
Yeah.
you're doing great.
I
And,
appreciate that.
yeah. And if your dad hears this, hopefully he really hears it.
Well, hopefully he listens too.
Yeah. No, yeah. Like, listens to it.
So at 16, I was talking to a different girl before Taylor, and my mom did not like her mom. So I was also supposed to not like anybody in the family. You know, that's like in their family. I was not supposed to like any one of them. And I went against her wishes and saw the girl one more time after she told me to no longer see her anymore. And when I got home, she grilled me about where I was and ended up taking my phone at the time and chucking it against the wall and like literally bending the corner of the phone inward.
Holy
The phone
crap.
they bought and paid for, so they destroyed the phone they bought and paid for, and they were going to have to buy another one if they wanted to get in contact with me,
Oh my goodness.
which they ended up doing. So they double paid because she couldn't control her aggression towards me.
Right. And that's the thing too about anger and aggression, is when people do things out of anger in that place, like your mom throwing your phone against the wall because you saw this girl after she said no contact. When she's doing that, she's thinking that she has control over the situation. She's displaying her power and her control to you. Like, you're going to listen to me, and here's how you're going to listen to me. But really, when she's doing that, she's losing control. Like, she looks like a fool doing that.
Yes, very much so.
I would imagine you didn't gain respect
No,
for her.
never. It was always the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's so messed up.
Yeah. So at the age of 17, Taylor and I were dating, and we were writing letters back and forth to communicate, because other than like a 10-minute allotted phone call window at nights when I would be allowed to talk to Taylor, my phone had a lock on it where I wasn't allowed to use it. When my mom permitted me to use it, it had hours from like 7 to 5 you were allowed to use it. And even if you didn't use a full 2-hour allotted, like, so you get from 7 to 5, and then there's like a 2-hour timer running. So if you use that 2 hours, by 3 p.m. your phone would lock. It doesn't matter if you got till 5.
Sure, you couldn't like get like a power bank. You couldn't like save up from the day before to use the next day.
And even if you didn't use the full 2 hours, by 5 o'clock, it would still lock regardless.
Sure. So she was very controlling. She was like, you're not going to have any communication with people, which is actually a tactic for abusers. They don't want you to have communication with people.
Is that surprising?
Because they want you to remain vulnerable. They want you to remain within their control. Yeah. So what did she do in this case with you and Taylor?
My parents and I had been arguing for weeks. Things weren't great, and we were arguing until 2, 3 in the morning, even during the school days. And I went to bed because I had basketball practice the next day. It was like a Sunday practice. We had a Monday game, I believe. So it was, 7, 8 a.m. I wake up to go to practice, and she's in the living room waiting for me. And she's like, Hunter, come in here. Ready to continue on the argument from last night. And the 3 weeks prior, just a snowball effect almost.
She needs you to feel guilty. She needs to keep you in that position of like, you're the fuck up.
And I said, I'm not doing this right now. We just got done arguing last night. We're not going right back into it. I got practice to get to. And she said, fine, I'm calling Taylor. And she did. And started out the phone call screaming. 7, 8 in the morning. There's some time around then. Taylor literally got woken up to the phone call. My mom screaming at the top of her lungs, not letting her get a word in the conversation.
How old was Taylor at that point?
She would have been 17 at that point, still too, I believe.
What kind of a grown-ass woman calls a 17-year-old girl in like early in the morning to chew her out for something she probably I can just see that.
Well,
like,
she had no idea what was going on
what the
because
fuck?
her and I weren't able to communicate, so she had no idea what I was going through, because even when we would talk on the phone, like, do I want to spend 10 minutes talking about the argument with my family? That happened yesterday. So
Terrible.
Taylor sat there for like 10 minutes listening to my mom just go off. It's like a bombshell went off, and Taylor put her on speaker, walked her downstairs to her mom, and Taylor gave her mom the phone. And my mom then proceeded to call her mom a bitch.
Wow.
While screaming and yelling, threw bitch in there. And Taylor's dad called my mom. Keep in mind, my mom plays the victim through this. She had no part of anything here, you know?
Oh, of course she wouldn't.
Yeah. So Taylor's dad ended up calling my mom back and called her a bitch back. And that's what my parents grabbed onto for dear life.
Shit.
Is that she got called a bitch. But her saying it
is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I bet your mom would take that and then view Taylor as
I'm sure that
associate them.
Right. And I'm sure that this side of the story doesn't ever get told. It's very one-sided.
Yeah. Wow. God, this lady.
Yeah.
Where was there ever an adult in your life that was like, hey, this is actually messed up. We should report this. We should do something about this.
No, because nobody really knew what was going on behind closed doors, Everybody assumed it wasn't as bad as it was. She was very openly aggressive, but it wasn't to the point of behind closed doors.
Sure.
She almost got enjoyment out of embarrassing me around my peers whenever she could, to the point of like, you're in big trouble. Your dad's going to be pissed when he gets home in front of a group of my friends. And my dad will get home and doesn't even know what's going on. So just to make a show out of me. And these are the people I considered friends.
Again, to like cut you off from people. Yeah. Wow. That's horrible. That is like, again, like having that one person, that one trusted adult you can go to can make a world of a difference, especially because something could have been reported, but that's part of how they like to do it. They like to make you afraid. They want you to be afraid of if you ever went to somebody that there would be huge consequences for you.
Right. There was many times throughout my childhood that they didn't let me go to events, like high school parties, whatever it may be. To the point of one time I asked if I could go to a party. And they asked where it was at, and I told them. I got a Snapchat from some of my friends later that night. They went to said party and left me at home to babysit the kids. So they were out partying with people that were my friends while I sat at home watching their kids for them.
Shut up, your parents?
Yes.
Oh my God. What the fuck?
Yeah. So they very much controlled what I did and couldn't do.
Yeah.
It was very toxic, because
absolutely
going hand in hand with that, everything you did or didn't do was going to be used against you, no matter what it was. If you want to go to that party 2 weeks from now, you better do this, 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 and this. And if you don't do it perfectly to her standards, there's a chance that the Thursday before that Friday, it would be ripped away from you, So you'd spend the entire week doing your best, your goodest boy. And then the night before, she would find one little thing that, oh, you're not going anymore.
Well, because even if you did everything by her book, she's going to have something that is not good.
Yeah.
Like, she's going to nitpick something. Yeah. How were you with your mental health? Like, how did you cope with all of the stuff that's going on?
I internalized a lot of it. I mean, once I had met Taylor, it was a completely different story. She completely changed my viewpoint on mental health as a whole, and really gave me the room to just be myself, feel the things you're feeling. Being sad is nothing to be ashamed of. And I have evolved into a completely different person simply because of Taylor, giving me the ability to be who I always wanted to be, but I didn't have anybody giving me the power to do it. The person I am now is who I've always wanted to be. And Taylor gave me that power. My parents never did. They wanted to make me feel powerless.
Did they ever try and assume responsibility for when you felt empowered?
What do you mean, I guess?
So you were saying how, like, when you met Taylor, she was the person who was like, yeah, this is not okay, and helped you to, like, talk about the things that were weighing on your mind and bringing mental health into the picture. And I'm wondering, when you finally realized, like, actually, this is fucked up, and I do have these issues, and there are better ways to cope and to process, did your parents ever try and take responsibility for your success in that?
No, because I don't even think they know where I'm at right now mentally,
Yeah.
They have always just assumed and ran with it. They never asked.
Are you no contact with them now?
Yeah, I've got them both blocked on everything. They still have ways of getting a hold of me. If they want to, reach out through my siblings, through my grandparents, whatever it may be, they got ways to get a hold of me.
How long have you been no contact with them?
With my mom, it's probably been a year or more.
Okay.
And with my dad, it's been pretty recent. I mean, the last 6 months, I'd say.
Wow. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
Setting boundaries and with people is hard in general, but especially when it's family, it's so difficult because there's that feeling of obligation of, well, they're my family. I have to just get through it with them. But if they continuously show you the type of people they are and they're showing no progress in accountability, then that's when it's like, okay, time to uphold the boundary, time to cut you out. And that's so hard to do. So it's very impressive that you've been able to do that.
Yeah, there was times like I would block my mom, and then my dad would talk to me like, "Hey, can you unblock your mom? It's making her super sad." So then I'd unblock her, and it'd be the same thing as before I blocked her. So then I'd block her again, and then I blocked my dad for a short period of time, and then unblocked him, and then had to reblock him because it was the same thing. They never have made any efforts to be different than who they are. They're too stuck in their own ways, and they have too big of egos that they shouldn't have. They have overinflated egos. You guys have no reason to have them, Your head can't even fit in the vehicle because it's so big.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of, like, their ego is so big. They think they're the shit.
Yeah.
When really they're just
And they
shit.
can't do, they're just, they can't do anything wrong. And it's just like, take some accountability for even one of your actions, But it's just not there. I mean, even this is a little bit different story, but like even saying sorry or keeping promises. My mom said that she was going to do something and then wouldn't do it. I'd be like, "Oh, you promise?" It'd be I never promised.
Yeah.
Okay,
Come
but
on.
you said 7 times over that you were going to do this thing if I did this. So regardless if you threw "I promise" on the end of it or not, you told me repeatedly that it was going to be done.
Yeah.
It felt like a promise.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like an agreement.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to do this thing. Yeah. Wow.
Moving forward. So there's a story here that I missed going back to like roughly 14 years old.
Yeah.
It was Thanksgiving. My uncle was over, and I wasn't, I was giving my parents hell that day. I will admit that I shouldn't have been running my mouth as much as I was and not listening as much as I was. I was kind of off the rails a little bit, but it doesn't make it okay that my dad picked me up off the ground and body slammed me into the floor over it.
Holy fuck.
Yeah. So just like a loss is cool,
Yeah. Again, like the anger, but also that is physical abuse.
Yeah.
And there was no one in the room that was like, oh my God,
No.
and did something about it.
No, there's never been anybody in the room that...
What would you say if you like met someone and they said that situation?
I'd
Like,
be
what
like,
happened to you?
Fuck no. If they ever do that again, do not talk to them. Maybe don't even give them another chance to do it again. I mean, if they saw it fine, they thought it through, maybe there was no thinking there, I don't know. But if they thought it through and still decided to do it, what's preventing them from doing it again?
Yeah.
You don't need to stand for that. You deserve to be treated well. You don't deserve to be thrown around by somebody just because they're upset.
Yeah.
Their emotions got out of control, and now it's you have to deal with that. That's not okay.
Yeah. People in control very rarely get angry.
Right.
Like, no.
Yeah. I personally think if you throw something, you look stupid.
Especially a person
Yeah.
taking a fucking body and body slamming it.
Or even like grown ass men in the workplace, like getting upset and like throwing something across the shop into the wall. Like, what did you prove there?
Yeah.
You just made a mess. That's all you did.
Yeah. Like, did you resolve anything
Right.
doing that?
You just look silly. I mean, there's no other way to go around it.
Yeah. Yeah. It might be like a temporary like satisfaction, but you didn't really resolve shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at 19, I was back home on Christmas break from college, and I was out drinking with some buddies. I had probably 6 beers in 4 hours, so call that drinking if you want, but it was more socializing than anything. And I got home around 12 or 12:30 and got a bunch of messages from my dad. They were at the bar. He had gotten locked out. My mom had the keys inside. It was -20 outside. So I'm like, I'm not going to let you just freeze to death. So I drove to town, and I ended up getting behind him on a side road, followed him out to a road over by our house, and all of a sudden they just pull over to the side of the road, and my mom rolls down the window, starts going off about how everything's shit, everything, it has never been great, da-da. I was like, okay, let's just get home, and then we'll talk about it. We get home, I walk in the door, I didn't even say a word. She takes her purse off her shoulder, throws it across the kitchen table, stuff went flying off the kitchen table from the purse hitting it, and she just goes off on me.
On you.
Yes, on me.
Being the responsible person in this story to go pick up your drunk, intoxicated father.
Right.
And your mom went with you, it sounds like. And then, like, you get back, and then she loses her shit on you?
So my mom and dad were both at the bar together.
Oh, they were there together.
Yes.
Okay, so you picked them up.
I was going to pick up. They drove home.
Oh, they drove home.
Yeah, I followed them home.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, drinking and driving is just a hobby for them. It's just nothing, you know?
Oh my fucking, that didn't even click in my head. Holy shit. And you get home and then they lose their shit on you?
Yeah.
For what?
For anything and everything. I have a video if you want to hear it.
Can you just describe what happened in it to me?
She literally is screaming at the top of her lungs, just rambling about the most random stuff, like, "You piece of shit girlfriend, we've got a lawyer," which isn't true. Never happened. So I ended up, at the end of it, walking out. And to this day, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not. A part of me thinks it was. A part of me, I'm not sure. But, like, I went to bend over to lace up my boots, and as I was bending over, she swung her hand up and hit me, like, right here.
On your nose?
Yeah.
Like on your...
Yeah, right above my top lip, basically.
Oh, my God.
And I just, reached for the door handle. She tried to get in front of it, and I ended up just, while her whole body weight was against the door, I ended up throwing her with, like, swinging the door open. She ended up against the wall.
Well, she probably doesn't realize, because she's been the aggressor for so long, that you're a big guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know what your mom looks like, but, like, I imagine you could take her.
Well, at that point, I would have outweighed her by 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Because I was in college football pushing around men that were bigger than me. I weighed 290 pounds at the time.
Yeah.
She has never been anywhere near close to that. So it was at least 100 pounds of separation. And it's like, stop. You're not as big as you want to make yourself seem.
Yeah. And, like, hey, lady, this is what control actually looks like.
Yeah, it's like quite literally dealing with a chihuahua that, there's loud as can be, they act aggressive, but they're this big. And it's just...
That's a good way to describe her then.
Yeah, pretty much. I was on my parents' health insurance and car insurance, driving a car that they ended up buying for me when I was going to go to college. So I didn't have a reliable vehicle. And when we were literally talking to the salesman, he left the room so we could talk. And I said, if this is going to get brought up in an argument at a later date, I don't want the car. It wasn't even 2 weeks later it got brought up in an argument after they said they would not bring it up in an argument. It was used against me.
Don't give this gift and then use it against me.
Right. So I was on their health insurance and car insurance, and just briefly, my dad asked me, he's like, would you be willing to take over the car insurance for that car? And I'm like, yeah, but I need the title in my name then. I'm not going to be putting car insurance on a car that I'm driving that the title isn't in my name, because then if I get in an accident, I got to involve you. Whatever it may be, a whole bunch of theatrics I don't want to get into.
Absolutely.
So give me the title, and yes, I'll put car insurance on it. And never went past that until I was trying to find insurance for a different vehicle that I had bought. And they're like, do you have prior existing insurance? And I was like, yeah, it should be on my parents' plan, And they're like, there's nothing here. After 3 or 4 people that I called, I started to connect the dots that they just went ahead and removed me. So yeah, I was driving around without car insurance for like 6 months because my dad took that argument as done and just went ahead and removed. And Taylor almost got in a car accident in that period.
Wow.
And that could have been a very real thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was no forward thinking. And when I proceeded to message him about, okay, so then he took me off my health insurance. I asked him about it after I got a letter in the mail from the state of North Dakota saying that I no longer was insured through the plan I was on. So I messaged him. I was like, thanks for letting me know you took me off your health insurance. He was like, well, I thought you got it taken care of since you're an adult now. You want to play this adult card. He's like, you could have been double insured this whole time. I was like, so now you tell me. You had 20 years to tell me that I can be double insured as an adult, and you didn't. Now this is information that's always been in your head, and you just didn't care to ever provide me with that information that I could have utilized.
These don't strike me as the type of people to offer that courtesy, though.
No, there's not any advice that my dad or mom gave me throughout my childhood that I've carried on. Because even when it was advice that they wanted to give, it wasn't good, And there's a lot of things that my entire childhood was a lie. I'm coming to the realization, like, things that I was told, I do the research. Okay, that was a lie. Next, that was also a lie.
Yeah, these are supposed to be your, like, mentors. These are supposed to be your people that you go to when you have questions and need answers. And
right, but they're just filling my mouth with shit and calling it a day. And it's just like...
So one thing, too, that I hear a lot with, like, kids that, even, like, adults now who have struggled with stuff with their family in the past, something that they always say is, I just wanted to hear those words, I'm proud of you. And I'm wondering if you also were, like, throughout your life, striving to get to that point, to hear those words.
Right. I mean, I'd say the last year or two, I could really give a hoot less if I ever even talked to them, you know? But prior to that, you're always striving to be the greatness in their mind. You know, you're trying to fulfill this image that you can never fully color in the lines for. And it's a defeating thing. You know, it's kind of like a daunting task almost, to the point where I went to 2 different colleges because my dad put a bug in my ear. I went to go to Valley City to be a game warden, and I did that because when I was a freshman, my dad started putting a bug in my ear that I should go be a game warden. So I went to Valley City, failed all my classes. I ended up talking to my dad about it, and he put another bug in my ear and said, go down to Wapton, become a plumber. You get your certificate in 9 months. You make a bunch of money. It was a 9-month program, but I came out of college making $16 an hour. So I would have been making more money at McDonald's being a burger flipper. You know, so I shoveled a bunch of money down the toilet trying to please these people that can't be pleased. Now I'm to the point where people ask me, like, what are you going to do? I'm just not doing what people tell me to anymore. If you tell me to do something, I'm doing the opposite.
You have to ask yourself the question of, am I living this life for this person?
Right.
Or am I living this life for me?
Because now I'm the one paying the student loan bills, not them.
Right. Wow.
At 21, Taylor and I got engaged down in Florida. It was the perfect weather down there. The event that we went to was perfect. The thing was, at the time, with my parents, things were not great with them. So the engagement went great. It was a great day. And I ended up sending a picture to my grandmother. And she said, you should send a picture to your mom, even though things aren't great. I did. I said, luckiest man alive, with like the little green check mark, and a picture with a ring on her hand. And she said, don't send me stupid shit. Then proceeded to make a Facebook post having a pity party with her and all of her friends. There was 130 comments over 13 hours while I was learning to drive stick shift for a excavation company out of Castleton.
Yeah, so you can't even know that you don't even get these. You can't check these notifications.
Right. I would respond when I could, but like, I'm not going to respond to these 50 people that I don't even know.
Yeah. And what, like, at this point, I imagine you had very little respect or reason to talk to your mom. And again, yet again, you're being the adult, you're being the bigger person by saying, hey, like, this amazing thing just happened in my life. I just got engaged to the love of my life. Like, hoping that at least she would be happy for you, or even just neutral, to be like, okay. But no, to bring you down of don't send me stupid shit is so manipulative and is so unnecessary.
I tested the waters a little bit with my dad a couple years later and sent him just a picture of Taylor and I together. I don't know if there was any context to it or not, but even he didn't say anything about it. He just carried on with the conversation that we were having prior to that. It was actually one of the very few decent conversations we've had since leaving their house. But like, I sent him a picture of us together and he just kind of skipped over it. And even saying nothing in that moment would have been better than don't send me stupid shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God. And to take it to Facebook, like not even to like just keep that private, but to take it to that level
and
make
of
it
our past
public.
Stuff, all of our past stuff. Like anything that we had, I'm not going to say anything that we had talked about, but like the basis of our feud was out there for all of her Facebook friends. And like I said, there was 130 people in there for 13 hours straight, commenting away, saying whatever, just running their mouths. You know, there's people I'd never even met saying I should have been beat more as a child.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Did anyone come to your aid in that?
Oh, yeah. I had some friends that came on there and like, no, like you need both sides of the story. Don't believe one side of the story. My dad proceeded to message me. I got screenshots saved in a folder just in case, you know. But he said that if anybody ever talks to my mother that way again, they won't find the bodies. So
holy crap. That's serious, dude. You can't just go around making threats. Like, that's a threat.
Yeah. Yeah,
he
messaged that to me.
My God, that is wild. I mean, I love your friends for doing that, to be like, who are you? Who are all these people in here making these assumptions about people they don't know?
And like throughout that feed, I was trying to put screenshots of like the don't send stupid shit to me message. Yeah. And she would delete it instantly, to the point where she was almost sitting in the feed, waiting for it to come in. So that way, because like you'd close the app and go immediately back in, and the comment would be gone. So she didn't want any of that out there for anybody. To make her look bad in the slightest was not okay. So
yeah, wow, yeah.
So here's more of a background to explain of who she is as a person.
Your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who my mom is as a person on a more of an in-depth level. One of my younger sisters at the time was not necessarily overweight for her age. You know, she 10 years old. You're a healthy, growing child. And my mom would constantly like to say, you're going to have diabetes when you get older if you keep eating the way you do. So just constant, like even that braiding on that level.
And fear-mongering is not a productive way of going about it.
Right.
Like your mom being like, oh, you're going to get diabetes if you continue this way. That's not going to get you, that's not going to be productive. That's not going to make your child feel supported. A much more supportive way is to like come from a more concerned, hey, like, I just noticed these behaviors or these patterns and I just want to know what do you think about it, right? Like try to be more understanding and help them, like have them be a part of the conversation. There's so many like different ways you could do it, anything but make them feel guilty about the way they look.
Right. Things would have been so differently, even to this day, if they were able to communicate effectively, but they never have had that ability. You can't get a point across. So I don't like to necessarily even swear hardly anymore when I'm like having a conversation with somebody, like you did this, I did that, whatever it may be, you know. I don't even try to swear anymore. I try to keep it in the back of my head to keep it out because there's no need for it. I've tried to be better at apologizing to people. Even if I think I'm 1,000 sheets to the right sometimes, I'll still apologize because I don't want a feud to break out. Exhibit A, what we're talking about here, they were never able to say they were sorry, you know?
Yeah. So if a situation happens, I always draw like a circle for my clients on a paper. And I call it the responsibility circle. And I'm like, how much responsibility do you believe you take in this? And some people who are like self-deprecating and think that they're the worst human in the world be like, I take 100% responsibility. But then you also have people like your mom who's like, it's their fault. They are 100% responsible. And I'm always that challenger of, I would argue that you're 50% responsible. This person's 25%. This person's like 25%. Like, whatever, like break it down for them, like to show them like actually these are all the things, and not, it doesn't have to be he said, she said, and like they're completely wrong or you're completely wrong. Take responsibility for what you did wrong and change, like take it, learn from it. And it doesn't sound like your mom was going to be that type of person to ever take responsibility for her part.
No, that never happened.
Wow. Okay. Any other like personal stories or experiences that you
I think I got through all of them.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your personal experience. That's a lot to go through. And even if the people listening or watching don't relate to every single aspect, there's a lot of information about in there of like what to look for. Like these are the signs, these are the symptoms, and these are things you can do to challenge it. So I'm curious now, like 22 years later, you've gone through this whole life, multiple lives in one life.
Yeah.
What are some like advice, maybe like recommendations, awareness that you would say to somebody if they were either going through this or if they had someone in their life and they're looking to support them?
Sure.
That's a loaded question. So,
I think I get the picture.
Okay.
I would say do your best not to carry on the things that your parents carried on. And the generational trauma and the generational things that just keep snowballing. Because, like, just for an example, I grew up in a house where screaming and yelling and name-calling during an argument was a thing. Taylor and I have been together for 6 years. Have we raised our voices? Yes. But we have never yelled, and we have never called each other derogatory terms in the heat of argument intentionally. Because we don't want that to be a part of our lives.
Right. Yeah.
So feel free to just, like, take generational curses and snap them right over your knee.
I've seen it go one of two ways when someone is in this cycle of abuse. Either they like take that, internalize it, and then they become the abuser, or they, in your case, what you did is you take it and then you do something different. And it takes a lot of strength and power and setting boundaries and being consistent to do that. And it's possible, right? If I were to sit down with your mom, I would talk to her about like trying to figure out what her background is, like what made her this type of person that she is today. And I can just imagine the types of things she would say of like the way she was treated, right? And I would say that it's an explanation, right? But it's not an excuse. Like you, right? It's an explanation. Like the person you are today, it totally makes sense because of all the crap you've gone through. But you don't take it and make an excuse to be an asshole to other people.
Forever.
To abuse other people, right? Like you took it and you learn from it.
I think you can either make it your reason or you can make it your excuse, you know? And everything that came out of my parents' mouths, I've attempted to use as a reason to be better than them, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not going to carry on the stuff that has plagued my family for God knows how long.
So say that this person comes to you and they're saying how they have a person in their life, since we're talking about men's mental health, a man in their life who struggles to communicate, process their emotions. What advice would you give to them?
Don't be scared to dig deeper into your emotions. Don't try to just keep them surface level and be like, I'm mad or I'm sad. What part of it? What area of that was the trigger that made you feel the way that you are? And then go from there. Once you have the trigger figured out, how do you not let it happen again so you don't feel this way again? When it comes to if somebody was in my shoes, looking back, I wish somebody would have told me to not argue with these people. It's not worth it. These people literally have the argument figured out 10 ways before you even walk through the door.
Right.
Because they're sitting there just dwelling on these things and it's just building and they already have the argument figured out. So then you walk in the room and you're blindsided. There's times where I would apologize and it wouldn't be a good enough apology for her. She's like, no, I didn't want to hear it. Right. And then we continue the arguing. So I also realized that sometimes it just doesn't work, but don't feed into it.
So you're saying that like if someone were to have someone in their life who's struggling with this, to give them that space to express what's going on, but to dig deeper beyond the surface level of, yeah, I'm fine. But no, like, how are you really?
Yeah.
And then also for that person who is going through these things, mental struggles, trauma, abuse, whatever the case may be, to try not to internalize it as there's some flaw within them. Rather, there's a flaw within these other people and you're never going to be able to fulfill that in them.
I would also say too, that like, I know there's a lot of times that in relationships, like I can't leave because I have this here and this here and this here. All those things can be bought and replaced. The only thing you can't buy is your own happiness.
Yeah.
So it's like that $20 item right there. Are you going to get out of that abusive situation or are you going to stay in it because of that $20 item?
Right.
You know, and it's just like, don't feel afraid to leave things behind. When I moved out of my parents' house, I had a duffel bag.
Yeah. And you were 18?
Yeah, freshly 18.
Freshly
like 2 weeks
18.
after I turned 18.
Yeah.
I had a buddy in Angerson who, to this day, I'm still grateful for him and I respect him dearly. If he got a hold of me at 2 a.m. and said, I need help, my vehicle would be heading south to go help. He did a lot more for me at the time than I think he even realized because I had no money to my name. Summer job is starting, yes, but the next thing is college. So I had 2 or 3 months there where I kind of had to shake it up and figure it out. But he was there for me.
Yeah. The fact that your friend took you in and I know who you are and I can just imagine that you were very grateful and I'm sure they know that.
I hope so.
Well, is there any other advice that you would give to someone who's struggling mentally and ways that they could get help?
If you're considering looking into therapy, get a hold of your insurance provider because they should be able to not necessarily direct you, but be able to even let you know if you're able to get covered for therapy. And a lot of places do, to my understanding, like they'll be covered by your insurance. So take the time to do a little bit of background work, make a couple calls, whatever it may be, because in the long run, it's going to benefit you tremendously doing the little bit of work that you need to do. And if you aren't to that step yet, listen to Grace's podcast because she gives little tips and tricks here and there to help people, like even down to breathing, to figure out how to breathe better when you're in a stressful situation. And even down to that, it's a stepping stone, So if you aren't to the point of going to talk to a therapist yet, start small. Start listening to an hour podcast a day, and it'll give you tips and tricks that you can then utilize to go from there.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I hear a lot of people, they're just so nervous to start therapy, or maybe they can't afford it because maybe they don't have insurance or whatever the case may be. Podcasts are great. I love the shout out for my podcast. YouTube videos, whoever it is, even just journaling, you can do it. You can do the work yourself too. It's hard work to do, but it takes practice, consistency, and recognizing we're looking for progress, not perfection. And I definitely back that up, that therapy is a great tool for anyone looking to do some self-discovery, personal growth, looking ways to cope better, to process too. Even like you were saying at the start of the podcast, that a lot of these are repressed for you. that's something that you can do in therapy. You can start talking about it and processing it of, okay, you know what, these things happened, and it doesn't have to be this thing that I identify with to a certain degree. So yeah, therapy is a great resource. There's also some other people, influencers that I really like. I don't know how to pronounce the name perfectly, so I'm really sorry. I'm going to butcher this. But on TikTok, there is a influencer and a doctor called Dr. Kojosafro. It's spelt Kojosarfo. And there's another creator on there called Therapy Jeff. Specifically, I brought up them because they're really good advocates for men's mental health, which I wanted to find those resources for people. So, yeah. Any final thoughts, Hunter, on the topic today?
My life has been 100 times better since leaving my parents' house, and it's only continued to get better since removing them from my life. I'm thankful that Taylor was able to give me the tools that I needed to get where I'm at, because I don't think I'd be the person I am today without having her in my life. Completely changed the way I look at the world and how I treat people, and I do accredit that to her 100%.
I love Taylor so much. She's my best friend, and I love her so much. And Hunter, you did a lot of this too. Like, give yourself credit too. Like, pat yourself on the back. Like,
I appreciate that.
It takes a lot of strength and courage to do this, and it sounds like Taylor was a great support in helping you to recognize your strength and to be there with you along the way. You did a lot of the work too. Yeah. And like, whoever's listening, you can do it too. We're looking for progress, not perfection. Mm-hmm. But yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I appreciate you being here today.
No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I liked having you on. If you liked what you heard today, please leave a review, leave 5 stars, share with the people in your life. You can find me on Instagram at life.in.motion24, on TikTok at life_in_motion24. If you have questions for me or for Hunter, or if you just have like perspective on anything that we shared today, you can email me at life.motion24@gmail.com. I also started uploading on YouTube, so you can watch today's episode on there. I upload podcasts every Thursday, so stay tuned in to hear all about life in motion. Until next week, embrace the chaos and find the beauty. Bye.